Roundtable with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, in studio with my brother from another, the Rhodes Scholar. You like that new title?
Well, no, I believe you me. All my life, I've heard the Rhodes Scholar.
Rhodes Scholar, okay.
Yeah. Well, from the teachers anyway. Usually from the kids in the school, I was Rosemary.
Rosemary. I'm not even going to go down there. I'm not even going to ask what that's about.
Well, basically pre-registered you for a little butt kicking.
Oh, okay, because you're one of those smart guys. Keeping a lot in that cranium. You again, the caller number here, 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. An action-packed morning here. Well, we got a lot going on here. You know, talking about reparations, the Boston Police Department, the promotional exams. Folks, we have to do better. You know, we are actually living in silos. The worst is yet to come for us. And if we continue down this path of this division, of not working and actually allowing others to choose our leaders who have our best interests, well, we know. As soon as they're put in these positions, they don't have our best interests at heart. We have to stop allowing the mayor and anyone else to appoint people to positions without our approval, without us sanctioning it, just because they figure these individuals may have name recognition, but no real results in delivering on issues that are germane to us as it is today. There are so many examples. I said, it's election time coming up. We don't hold people accountable. There is an election every year. This year, it's at the state level. Next year, it will be we'll be voting for a mayor here in the city of Boston. Whether Michelle Wu runs or not, she now has a record. She said that she was going to fix a lot of things, and a lot of those things are not only broken, they're in worse disarray than they were. I think the test for me, like one of the things that is the mass and cast situation, right? We know that folks are like bears; they hibernate for the winter. We'll see if they come back out, because there's been a claim that the problem has been addressed and it's in better situation. And now, we're going to see whether or not, now that the warm weather will be approaching. Because I drove through there the other day, was coming through, and I started seeing folks already starting to migrate back out there, congregating out there. Because the weather has turned and it's warmer out there. Rose, I want to get your comment on this, because we know this is directed at our migrant brothers and sisters, particularly those from Haiti. It's how Massachusetts spent nearly $1 billion sheltering homeless families and migrants. In a scramble to accommodate the thousands of migrant families, the Healy administration has approved scores of hastily arranged contracts with little transparency, sometimes handing out multi-million-dollar deals without competitive bids. Now, you read into this, it's much about the contract is that this kind of money is being spent on. That's why when the caller was talking about reparations, I'm like, we're not dealing real, honest brokers, right? Because
the money's there. The city of Boston is wealthy enough to be able to take care of it.
We're about to send $68 billion to Ukraine.
Yes. So
on top of what we've already said.
Yes. And then, but again, those comes with as government contracts, weapons, so that money is not distributed to the people.
But 68 billion didn't get $1 billion.
But that's the funny thing is, when they do appoint or allocate all those funds, there are a lot of American companies that are making that money because it's their products that are being sold. But a lot
of times when situations like this happen, they're talking about no bid contracts. You don't have, if someone is sleeping, you've got an influx of people that need housing. You really don't have time to go through the normal vetting process that you do to procure the homes, the food, and all of that for people that you would normally do. You have to do it in the sense of urgency, right? So I can understand the administration not maybe following the letter to the law as to how they would normally do this if they knew that it was going to be a 6 months out and then they could put this out for bid. But when you don't have that luxury, this is what you're...
I do not know exactly how the governor allocated the funds or what have you, but I do know that she's taken into account from different... She took information and got input from different organizations within the community. So I will commend her for at least doing that. Right. And then some of the organizations within the community are actually receiving the funds. So I don't know exactly as far as the housing or where it's actually going, but I do know the fact that these people are being housed, and the the way that the system works is like, okay, you can sleep here, but in the morning you need to get out,
right,
and then take everything with you,
right.
And then, by the way, in order to come back to sleep here, you have to go register or get
right.
And so some families would okay, the dad goes and they stay somewhere in some public building where they can stay warm and sheltered, and he gets the registration, comes back with the family. So it's a little disorganized, and then but again, all the people that came in from Ukraine, I don't see them going through this. They have houses, they have jobs. They're again they're saying
the welcome mat is out.
The welcome mat is definitely out. And we have families here too that can house these people and try to house these people, but again, it's not as smooth of a transition.
It's not as accommodating.
No.
Let's be real. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
And I have to make one quick correction,
Sure.
Larry. Next year is also the city council is up for re-election as well.
Yes, but Dick, we've talked about this to nausea here on this broadcast, and this is why, I'm not going to any other meetings unless it's a meeting of the minds, and where we have an agenda, and we're not going to back down from it, right? And we're not going to allow people to choose our leaders, because sadly, when we have an opportunity to choose leaders, to choose better, we don't. Right, we go with what's popular, or we feel like the callers, I guess was talking about Mr. Sumter, is that the number of people the vote, the numbers are there, we just don't exercise them in the numbers that make a difference, right? When you have 100 people show up in a polling location that there's over 20,000 eligible voters, these people. Politicians are politicians for that reason. A lot of their money is spent on the analysts and finding out and going after with super voters and in communities to vote. So if you're disenfranchising, a lot of times you're doing it to yourself by not getting involved. And then you allow them. And then even if you don't like what they're doing, you have no recourse because you're not going out in numbers to make a difference.
I agree. And also, one of the things, because I'm a registered voter, and I do go and ask my elected officials tough questions, one thing that always keeps coming back to me is that they're not used to answering tough questions. They're always used to having people or going to places where the voters, I hate to say it, are sometimes dumb, deaf, and blind, that the voters will listen to anything or any answer that they give them, huh?
Well, the other problem too is, Dicko, right, is that if for some reason, right, you have one issue, you may have a list of them, right, and they feel like if they address the one that they want to, and now you come back, right, looking for something else, it's like there's a limit to what we can get as far as it. Like it's not a continuum of dealing with our issues. It's one and done. If you get one at all. And in other neighborhoods, they don't even have to ask. They don't even like the perfect example of when the mayor decided that and because there was pushback because the population was more engaged when they were talking about moving the O'Brien from down at the O'Brien to West Roxbury, right? And most people were not informed of the new system and how it works, is that your zip code really had a lot to do with whether or not you got into that. Well, there aren't many people of color that live in the West Roxbury 02136 or whatever the zip code is out there, that was going to disenfranchise a lot of community. But the issue being that a lot of the parents had their kids in exam schools. One usually says you're invested in your child's education, they're going to get a top-notch education in the Boston public school system. That should be the norm, not the exception. There was going to be pushback, and there was, because these families fought, and that's what made the difference. It should have been galvanizing. It should have been showing people what you can do when there's a population that is committed to doing so, right? I say all this because that was the roadmap that we should have been taking going forward, right? And saying, well, why aren't we doing the same for next door at Madison Park? Why aren't those kids learning, right? Why is that not being addressed? But because also the likelihood that those parents were voters and they were going to vote, and they made it very clear that they were going to take some action if this happened, that is no longer on the table. That's why they didn't have, not because they had this affection for the people in the community, because a lot of the community leaders that were speaking out were just being ignored. It's when those parents came together and said, we're not going to tolerate this, is when things changed.
It's not exactly. It's never mercy that saves you. It's your voice. So you got to speak up. Like not to be vulgar or whatever, but the rapist ain't gonna get off you unless you get off. You stop
the
fighting.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah,
and that's really where we are now.
Yeah.
And to that point, Dicko, it's like, again, I see the moving trucks coming. I see, like I said, as I alluded to earlier, that the price of living in Boston has become
like a lot of my family members. They own their homes, and they were like, "Well, you know what? We're gonna cash out and then go get something else, and not have to deal with the issues of the neighborhood that they're dealing with right now." Right. And then so again, the people that were the actual homeowners, the respectable homeowners in the neighborhood that look like us, are just taking
the money and
running. Yes,
yeah.
basically,
and because. If you live in Boston and if you want to put your kids into school, if you can't get them into one of the
and that's the thing,
schools,
they have to. Not only are they paying for the mortgage, they're also paying for private school while the kids go to school, because they don't, unless the kids are at a testing school, and even the testing schools aren't at the standards that they used to be. So
right. So Dicko, you're someone I feel that's very involved, very informed. But are you feeling the same level of frustration that I am feeling with the lack of action on our behalf? Because look. The mayor only gets away with what we allow. The police commissioner only gets away with what we allow. Our elected officials, right? Most of them, either they're unopposed when they run for re-election, or the challenger, it might be someone that's credible, but that person doesn't get the support. We tend to vote popularity and not what's in our best interest. How do we change that, or can we change it? Is it too late?
Well, my answer is this: first and foremost, for Black people, we got to go back to the basis of voting, because we got to vote for policies. We got to get away from the old, he looks like me, she looks like me, just because it's like the old saying goes, my skin folk ain't my kin folk. Mm-hmm. But until we can finally get away from that, that's the first and foremost. The second thing is, we got to do our own research for these candidates. We got to have some kind of independent third party that knows, not knows, but has some kind of information about the candidate that we can have a more intelligent decision on who we vote for. We won't vote for the white people in office that's going to do the job that we as the voters want them to do. And third, these politicians, this is why I go back to term limits for everybody. When they're in office, and again, I'm very observant about this, they feel that they're entitled to that seat. After they pass their second term, like with the third, fourth, fifth, etc., they feel entitled because they're thinking that, you know what, I want to be like the old late Ted Kennedy, God rest his soul. The man did die in office. Mm-hmm.
Right, but again, to your point, and I know Dick, Rhodes wants, but what does that look like? Again, we've been doing this broadcast for almost 15 years now. It's been that long, right, on this broadcast. One of the things we've been, consistent on is trying to get folks engaged. Stop this division on whether we have cultural differences, right? Because we're all in the same boat. Brother Rhodes, he's a Haitian American. He's my brother. There's full stop. It's, we have built a relationship based on who he is as a person. We understand that we celebrate the difference of our cultures, but that doesn't divide us.
No.
We bought into that, a lot of people, for the longest time. And this is where we are.
That's the whole thing. Like the whole political or colonizers' agenda was divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what they're doing. They're still doing. They're like, okay, like anytime like we bring up something to question the powers that be, they always find a way to kind of redirect it to say, hey, what about look at what's going on over there, and then so that way we never kind of go towards the people that actually are to be held responsible for what's going on.
Right.
And then so
because we don't have a steadfast resolve, right? In the last city election, the people in the city of Boston voted to have an elected school board, right?
Yes.
So if the mayor is not implementing and the city council is not implementing what the folks voted on, you think any reparations are coming? Because
well, here's the thing. Then that should be someone who's looking to actually make a change to hold the mayor to that.
But when was the last time you heard anyone talking about that?
Well, and to his point where he says, "Oh, we need an independent organization," and I think that's where the media comes in. They're supposed to be independent to hold hold truth to power and actually hold them accountable and ask them tough questions to be like, "What are you doing for the city?" And not just taking when they do a press release, or this is and then here, go report this, go spread the news around, or go tell them what I want you to tell them, as opposed to them actually questioning and authority with authority and just saying like, hey, listen, well, this is the people voted for this. Right. Why hasn't that been done? Well, the people are asking for this. Why isn't it?
Because if they voted for this in a suburban town,
it would be done already.
It would have been implemented because there would be follow-up. Yeah. So like I said, the conversations that we have here that I'm sure you're having in your circle, are you hearing those in the community? Like the meeting today that Mr. Sumter and them are having over at the former Unity Club over there at 10 Bar Ave, I don't know how many people are going to show up. It's not always the numbers, it's really the results, right? Because you can have two people in the room and they can be very effective in getting things done. We try to do that here on the broadcast, informing people, because there's no way you can reach the number of people. But if we were talking about Taylor Swift or someone, Beyonce, like, when her new album came out, right? Or the country, I don't even
something, John Carter or something like that.
Whatever. Right. Like you me is about as interested, because to me, I'm not hating on her.
No.
But that's not gonna help. That's gonna help her bottom line, right? And yet we don't. If we say, there's a meeting at the school committee or there's a Zoom. No, but if Beyonce is online and putting out her new album, she's getting hundreds of millions of hits.
They're gonna break the internet all of a sudden. Yes,
it's right. The system is gonna crash, right? How do we get people's way of thinking, Rhodes and Ditka? Because I almost feel like it's a lost cause.
That's the whole thing about like bread and circus. When you started questioning the emperor in Rome, that's how you start building colosseums and be like, hey, here's your football games, or here's your gladiators. Watch the Christians get slaughtered, and that way it kept the people from questioning the emperor. And then so again, it's the same thing to this day. It's like, well, we do have the football, the basketball, or the Taylor Swifts, all the things that are just
Trumps, right? That he's one of you, right? He's the guy that's had a silver spoon in his mouth his whole life.
And I can't believe that again. If you like, he definitely follows Hitler's philosophy.
Bliss, right?
Well, no, what he said: if you tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth,
right?
And then people aren't even questioning it anymore. No. And there's those experiments that they've done where it's like they've had a group of monkeys in a room.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Well, yeah. No, but bottom line is, it's like they had some sort of water bucket. Like if they tried to climb up the ladder to get the fruit, the water, they would get sprayed with the hose that knocked them down. And eventually, like even the monkeys, they slowly but surely, they kept changing the number of monkeys in the room. And then after a while, because it was a learned behavior, there were 12 new monkeys that had never been sprayed by the hose. But because it'd been indoctrinated in the other monkeys' minds, and in their social creatures, they taught the other monkeys, like, you better not go up that ladder. Right. So even these 12 monkeys that had never experienced the water hose shooting them down would knock the other monkey trying to go up the thing without ever knowing what the actual consequence was.
Right.
All right. So it's something that we're indoctrinated in. It's part of our culture. It's part of our history. And it's like Dr. Bradley said, it's going to be a tough thing to break out of. Right. But again, the fact that people aren't being engaged and they're being dismissed, and even the fact that we fought to vote. That's what the whole thing was. We were fighting to vote. We were dying to civil rights.
For granted.
And then now, exactly, people aren't even doing it.
But also, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying we like in Arizona, we want to bring you back to these archaic laws, right? When you weren't even considered a human being, right?
Yes.
And so people think that that's going to be a better situation to be brought. I mean, I'm not going without kicking and screaming, but
yeah. No, but it's unfortunate. But again, the powers that be, again, white supremacy, they feel threatened again by the number, the death rate versus the birth rate that they're having, and they see that the idea that the country is going to be a country of majority color, and since that's majority rules, they're changing the rules.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't think it's going to be majority rules. It's going to be like the people in power are the ones that rules, and you guys are going to have to follow along. So
Dick, help us out here. How do we get folks on? Because we have an election, and no, some people say that, and it's not hyperbole, that this really is going to be an election that really changes this country, and people feel like, oh, I live in Massachusetts, so it's not gonna, when the federal government and the courts are passing laws that impact you regardless to where you live, if you travel, it's almost like before where they had bans, if you're a black person, you didn't go to certain states, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a woman, are we going back to that? And again, there's an election every year in Massachusetts, in Boston, at the state or local level. But I don't see our situation. The caller called in about the People's Academy. We've had T. Michael Thomas on numerous times. They have the land there. This should have been a no-brainer getting the funding, right? Because if you're talking about reparations, that's a perfect example.
But the thing is, it's like the idea that you're actually taking people and trying to make them productive members of society.
God forbid you empower them.
And I'm like going wait a second. It costs you $70,000 a year to house someone in prison.
Right.
It's okay, maybe $60,000, and they get a full-time job, and now they're paying taxes. They're they're contributing members of society. Like, why would you not want to make that investment? Because it pays dividends down the future. Like education, like again, now the education's like $90,000 like for BU. So okay, but depending on the college that you go to, but again, it's like, why aren't we making it? And this is the only industrialized country where it's this expensive to go to college. Like other countries, it's like they're like basically saying they want you to go to college, they want you to become a better member of society and improve your life and everything.
Right. But like I said, the healthcare disparities, we see it all in real time, and yet we're not doing anything. Dicko, help us out here, brother. How do we get this turned around? Because I don't think we can. I think we're too many of us are distracted, and we're looking at things that really don't impact us in a way that is meaningful, but we're saying we're okay with it.
Well, my answer is, first and foremost, we should never give up, because our ancestors, even though they fought and died for this country, they never gave up. Even though during their darkest days or their darkest hours, they still forced change for this country. Yeah? Number two, we have to understand that we got to put everything on the table, because gentrification is still happening, not only in Massachusetts, but around the country. Yeah. Number three, we have to show the next generation, the young people, about voting. We have to take them to a voting booth, teach them how to be registrable when they hit 18 years old.
Well, you know what?
No more excuses about,
but the thing is, they used to do that in high school.
Yeah.
Okay, civics. And the whole other thing is, like selective service, it's the law. They get you registered for that. Why can't they make getting registered to vote the law?
Right.
Okay.
But the other piece to that, a different time and era, right? Is that back then, it was you could call people the N-word. You could discriminate against people openly.
No, and there were school fights and based on race and everything like that.
But that's my point. I'm trying to make here is that it was okay, and it was sanctioned a lot of times by the government, and they want to get back to that where the government is sanctioning it by saying is that you're not protected if they're discriminating against you. You're not protected if you're a woman and you have a medical situation and you can't carry a child. Right. Yeah. So the population, where basically it's a certain segment of our population controls the destiny for all of us, because even when they claim and they want to send these things back to states, and now people are finding out
the people are voting. Right. They didn't expect that again.
But not just that states' rights. Who's to say that 50, 60 people at the State House have to get to decide what I do with my personal, my medical, my health? Okay, you want to pass bills about seatbelts, things like that, but again, when it comes to things that my doctor should be deciding for me,
that should be a personal decision,
right?
And the idea as well is like the fact that they had the Civil War was fought again with the states' right, and that when they fought that, they were like, no, the federal trumps states' right, and then now we go again, oh no, send it back to the states. That's not the way that's not the precedent that was set.
What we're doing is basically is the Confederacy is now getting what they want, right? Where this will hold us right, was so that we didn't have this patchwork around the country, where if you were in certain states you had certain rights, and in other states you didn't have the same rights. It just boggles the mind that in 2024 we're back where we started from, back in,
study history not to repeat it, but to learn from it. And we haven't learned.
We haven't learned.
We have not learned.
And I don't think, like I said, that could, I don't see much in the way of change here in Massachusetts and in the city of Boston.
Well, the thing I'd like to say is, like, when they say the force is strong, the ignorance is strong in this country.
It's stronger.
It's very strong.
Stronger.
Yeah.
So Dick, you pointed out 3 things that you think might get the path, but how many people do you see practicing what you're preaching? Really, I mean, like your friends, or how many people in your community are you able to convince of the importance of what we're discussing here? Because I talk to a lot of people in the city, like Dr. Bry was saying, a lot of people, they say they're going to vote for Trump, and that's their right to vote for whomever they want to.
That bothers me.
But you're voting against your own interests. And when you ask them why, and they claim things were better, I'm like, first of all, they weren't better, or you got a check, because everyone got a check if you didn't call. You know what? I tell people, if you got a check,
because the government would shut down everything, you had to get a check.
Right, but for the most part, if you got a check, it was because when you were working, you weren't making enough.
Yes.
Right, you weren't making enough. So that says it all right there. And that everything, you're right, everything was shut down. And because of the mismanagement of the red man is the reason why it took so long. I mean, look, I think President Biden has done a phenomenal job with bringing this company where we didn't head into the recession that people thought. I know you're a numbers guy, Rhodes, where things in other countries, they're not doing as well as we are here in the United States. If you think it's bad here, and you have someone who's supposedly the smart businessman, he only surrounds himself with smart people, a lot of them don't even believe in him anymore. But most of it, if not all of his companies, have been in some type of bankruptcy.
They failed, yes. From the steaks to the wine to
the water to the universities,
yes,
you name it.
And again, the guy knows how to use the laws to his advantage.
He's peddling Bibles.
Yeah, well, the Bibles with the Constitution attached to the Bible.
Right.
That I feel like that's an oxymoron right there, because the whole separation of church and state.
Right.
All right. And then, so he definitely puts the moron in oxymoron, I would say. But the other thing in regards to that is about his business handlings and stuff like that, and the fact that he says that he knows what he's doing. In a certain point, he knows what he's doing to make himself rich, to enrich himself. But the fact that when he was
son-in-law, $2 billion,
and all the people paying to be in his hotels, and he's like, no, I'm gonna have my meetings at hotels, forget the state house and everything like that. Right. And here's another crazy tidbit that he did. His first wife died, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, he buried her at the golf course.
No, I did. You were telling me that.
Yeah. And the reason why he did that is so now the golf course is considered a cemetery, a memorial, so it doesn't pay taxes. So he makes millions of dollars at that golf course now that it's federally tax exempt because he's made it into a memorials. So he found a 501c, which is a 501a, which makes it the cemetery category where they don't pay taxes now.
Okay.
Yeah. So he knows what he's doing. I don't know if it's because sometimes you're like, oh, he's a moron, or sometimes you're like, is he a genius?
Yeah. He knows how to cheat.
He knows how to definitely cheat. That's all.
He knows all the loopholes for taxes, and that's why he doesn't pay them.
And the first thing he did actually when he lost that discrimination lawsuit in the 70s about him not letting people move into his apartments in Queens.
Him and his father.
Yes. The attorney who was Nixon's attorney told him, when we go outside, we'll tell the media, all the people outside in the newspaper when you're having the news conference, tell them we won. Yeah. But inside the court, he had just lost. But he did the PR thing, and again, no one ever challenged him and said, "No, you just lost." And they just went with what he said, that we won, and then left it at that. It was later on, it was like, no, the court decision is that he lost, but nobody fact checked them, and that's the media's failure right there, but not fact checking that man's sense.
That's what we're seeing now. Dick, toss it back to you, sir. Help us out here. What do we do to get people moving in the right direction? Because we're not moving in the direction. I think there's a sense of complacency, and that folks think that the government is coming to save us. It's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
Well, we gotta just, again, I know this is gonna sound corny, but I have to say it again. Until the community looks itself in the mirror, sees what all the resources being drained, and not seeing how a community is supposed to be in helping one another, then the cycle of poverty, violence, etc., is still going to exist over and over and over again.
Right.
And
So, Dick, let me interrupt because I hear what you're saying, right? And so I think, I guess the catalyst for that is that everything you just said is true. We've experienced all that with gentrification. I thought, okay, when the lack of education in our schools, the violence in our communities, right? The health care, right? We're starting to see, a lot of the Walgreens and all those folks, right, are moving out of our community, right? So we're seeing all of those things happening, and we're just watching it, right? And because I'm like wondering what one thing is it that's going to get us to pivot. And I thought some of those things would be it. I thought particularly when the gentrification and people not being able to continue to live in communities that they lived in, because realistically other folks did not want to live in them, that they were kind of safe in that regard. And now that's no longer the case, where people are saying, hey, we're coming in, you have to go. So I'm not sure what's left that would be the motivator. Help me out.
Well, for me, the motivation will have to come to understanding the condition and also making sure that the next generation can really be engaged instead of just.
How do you engage? Okay, so give me some tangibles here, because how do you engage them with these young folks now? They communicate totally different. They really don't communicate. They tweet, they text. It's a social media, right? And it's hard. And then things like what we're talking about, then it's of no interest to them. That's the sad part. The things that impact them the most, right?
That's the thing they care about the least,
right?
Yeah.
Like when Mr. Sumter was talking about, that the legislators are a bill. We all, if you understand how a bill works, a lot of times they put things on the floor at the State House. They don't go anywhere, right? And people are like, oh, well, they put something out there on my behalf. But if it doesn't become law, it's just like floating out there in space.
Unfortunately, most laws these days that are passed are like sponsored by corporations.
But also, people don't understand the difference between the city and the state, right? Is that the mayor and the city councilors, they don't make laws. They can pass city ordinances, but they can't pass laws. Mm-hmm. So anything they do down there is not a law. If they want to have a law, they have to send it up to the state house and get it passed there. So we don't even know which order in sequence of things to go, again, because civics is no longer taught in our schools, and unfortunately a lot of times it's not taught in our homes, right? When we looked at recently the truancy rate in the Boston public schools is off the charts.
I believe it's 50%.
Yes,
it's like as long as they're like, I believe if they're above like 8th grade or 7th grade, that it jumps up. But as long if they're little tiny kids, they'll go to school. But once they can know how to
I was listening to Joe Madison the other day, and he had a guy on. He was saying that based on the reading level of kids by the time they get in the 4th grade, is how they determine how many prisons they're going to need based on your reading level.
Yeah, no, because the point of like education, I guess, from kindergarten to 3rd grade, you learn to read, and then from 3rd grade on, you read to learn. Right, and it's like if you don't have the basis of being able to read, then you're not going to be able to learn.
We got the kids that are graduating and can't even read their diploma.
I remember an after school computer program. I was to the housing projects. They got a grant, and they're like, all right, they bought computers. They're going to be teaching the kids how to use the computers. And literally, I was like, okay, trying to teach the kids the computers. They couldn't read. I was like, okay, this is going to turn into a reading class.
Right. And Rose, do you remember during COVID? And there was a couple of stories in the Boston Globe.
Yes, about kids not even turning on the Zoom.
Turning on the laptop. Yeah. They didn't understand. So, and I thought it would be a teaching moment for parents to understand if you can't get your child at home to turn on and engage. How do you think it's when the teacher has a classroom of 30 kids in there, right, trying to get them?
Well, that tells you right there. The kids that probably engaged, the parents were engaged,
right?
And the kids that weren't engaged, the parents didn't care. They're like, okay, like do whatever you want to. You're at home, and they weren't following the agenda or what.
I had someone call me out because I said, I can tell the difference, and really, it's like a tale of two cities, and I think it's so obvious
with the O'Brien
and Madison Park. How can I tell a Madison Park kid from a O'Brien kid? Book bag,
yeah,
right, the book bag. And if you go down there and do a survey, right, of when you walk out of there, you don't have to even know which building they're coming out of. Just see them standing at the bus stop, right?
Yeah.
Just like, because what brought it to my attention, because before I retired, I was working in the schools, and my office was inside Latin Academy.
Yes, that's right. I visited you there.
Those kids walk. I mean, you barely hear them leaving out the building.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look out there, they're waiting for the buses of their parents. They've got these bags that are weighing them down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I never saw a kid from Latin Academy that did not have a book bag.
Mm-hmm.
Did not have a book bag.
Yeah.
I go to other schools. These kids don't even have a pencil, let alone a book bag.
Yeah.
But this is
no. But the crazy thing is, I got a lot of times when they go to school, to them it's for them it's to socialize. It's like, oh, who's got the cuter outfit on? Right. Who's got the latest gear on and everything like that. It's not about what the teacher's teaching.
Right.
It's not about who learned the lesson plan or who got did you finish the homework assignment or what? No.
And then when the weather turns nice, they don't even go to school because now they want to hang outside. I know, Dicker, we're tasking you with a lot today. We're trying to get you to come up with a plan that we can execute here, because I don't have anything left in the tank.
I think the thing is, it's like, the thing that keeps some of the kids engaged is like sports. Like some things where it's like the reason why they're going to school is because
sports now require you to keep a certain grade level.
No, but that's the thing.
They're not doing that.
No, they
used to be able to overlook it. Now they're not. So.
Now they don't require the grades for you to stay in school?
No, they do, but that's what I'm saying is a lot of these kids around, they just get frustrated because they can't keep the grades up, so they can't participate in the sport. You should be able to overlook that, and because they were a good enough player, they didn't have to hold them to the standard.
The coach should have held them responsible. The coach should have been like, education,
winning.
No, but the winning in life is knowing how to get that education. Yeah. It's not about just winning on the field. Because it's unfortunate. A lot of these days, thank goodness, they do have like people that help the professional athletes make better decisions with their money. But in the 70s and 80s, how many people became millionaires and after they retired were broke because they didn't know how to manage that money. So,
well, that's what I said. So Ditko, what's the plan?
That's the plan is to just help the youth by talking to them on their level, and no, I don't mean like talk to them like that we're their parents or grandparents, etc. But talk to them in a way that they can understand where we're going.
So what does that What does that look like, sir? Because I mean, I don't dispute anything that you're saying. The problem is, how do you get this new generation to be connected in that way? Because and understanding the importance, like you talked about, people died. We fought for these rights to vote, as Rose is saying, and we take it so cavalier. We don't see the value in it, right? And so folks have figured out that we're not engaged in that way. So even when the few of us that make noise about it, they can dismiss us because there's not enough of us.
I would also say this. I did go to school in Montreal until I was in third grade. Okay. And in the school in Montreal, the hierarchy in this country is you have the jocks, the cheerleaders, popular kids, funny, blah, blah, blah. At the bottom is the nerd. Okay. The smart kid.
That's not popular.
Yes. It's the opposite in Canada.
Really?
The nerd, everyone wants to be the smartest kid in the class. Wow. Okay. The jock is not that they dismiss the jock, but he's third. He's not like, it's you want to get the top grade. You want to be the kid with the top grade. Yeah.
No, and to your point with that, like, working in the schools, because I challenged one time and I said, we have so many programs for kids who are in trouble, who are behind, and I'm not saying
the squeaky wheel gets the grease, as they say.
When you ask, like, okay, what do we have for the normal kids? The kids that are doing well, they don't need anything.
No, they need encouragement. Yes, right. They need to know that they're doing the right thing, and they need to be able to get a little reward or pat on the head or pat on the back to keep them going. Because again, if they see that these people, how come they get the special after school program? How come they get to go to the summer, the summer camp? Because
if you act out, your child act out, they get the attention.
They get the attention.
One that behaves,
gets no attention.
Gets nothing.
You have a very valid point there, my friend. Very valid point.
Gets nothing there. I don't know, Ditko. Like I said, I pretty much, I want to say, but I've given up. I'm almost here lost for words because the more I've sat.
Well, you're still talking about it. You haven't given up.
Well, but
no, I know you're not actively trying to engage and figure it out.
No, because I feel like there's really no space where there's enough of us that are committed to the cause, and like people like us, and Ditko probably saying, we could just take our toys and go home, right? My neighborhood I live in, I don't live in the city, but I care. I grew up here, and it
Same
bothers
here.
me. Right,
It bothers me too.
Right.
I'm like going like I went to school here. I grew up here. I grew up on Wilmore Street, and it's right off Blue Hill. And I'm like, and the fact that the city doesn't put or invest resources for the people that are living here already to be better, to become engaged citizens and participating members of society, it just boggles my mind.
And absolutely right. Because in Boston, even with they're talking about some financial because of that COVID money drying up. But still, you have a school budget of almost 1.4 billion, and they were asking for a $200 million increase for this year as they're closing schools. Right? I mean, so
the administration got to get paid.
But you have schools outside of the city that are operating with not even a fraction of this budget, and the kids are learning. Maybe they don't have the so what are we doing wrong here? But I think also we're not demanding better. And we're not investing in our kids in a way. And those of us who can navigate and get our kids in the Metco or the O'Brien or Latin Academy, that is a solution. I remember one politician who were asking her she was running for Senate, and asked her because we were interviewing her, she wanted our endorsement. And we said, well, what are you doing for the schools? She says, well, my kids are in Catholic school. And, I'm like, okay, not everyone can afford that. And I'm glad that you and your husband can afford that. And basically it was like, well,
they're on their own, basically.
You need to figure it out.
Yeah.
But she was elected.
Okay. And that's the people. If people don't vote, this is what they're going to get. And then they keep asking us to solve their problems. But if they're not engaged in solving their own problems, like, how can we help them? Like they say, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. I
said you can't force them to think.
No, that is definitely very true.
No. So Ditka, how do we get more people thinking like you? I understand, and you're right. It's very difficult these days, I know, to communicate with these younger people, this younger generation, this next generation, and they want things instantaneously, and they really don't want to really work. Like protesting and marching, that I'm not saying people shouldn't do that, but that's just a small. You have to be engaged. You have to elect people who are going to serve your interests, and I just don't see enough of that.
And then to your point right there, protesting and marching is that they're out there doing that. But after they're done protesting and marching, how many of them are going to the meetings? How many of them are going to vote? How many of them are registering people? And that, again, the whole idea of like getting people to register to vote, they have to have some skin in the game.
Well, Pastor Hobbs said something very troubling. You're in the prisons, and you're saying a lot of people in there are registering, but it sounds very alarming that they are they voting, or they see things in a different light that they may be voting against their own interests.
Maybe so, yeah. And so it's interesting to say that, because one of the things that is as you talked about civic education, right? And that civic education also happened behind the wall, right? So that's what we're doing now. We're actually creating a whole curriculum, and more so than just voting for, like a party, right. Really understanding organizing, right? Really understanding how do you really do what's in your best interest, right? So, because the truth of the matter is, honestly, from my perspective, it's really not about the Democrats or the Republicans.
Amen.
The truth of the matter is, it's really about a movement. I always say this, right? And I really believe that it's actually is happening. I had the opportunity to speak this past Sunday here at Global about the status of our youth in the city of Boston and the church, from my perspective of working with those who are incarcerated and coming out of incarceration. And so a tribe of some brothers came, and some you couldn't make it, but some other people, and I really believe that it's really going to be a movement of people who come together, right, and then create a plan that's independent of our elected officials, right? If we're looking for that to be the answer, it's never going to happen.
Exactly.
Right? So being able, how do we pool our resources? How do we create an alternative? How do we mentor young folks? Because it's really not going to be mass, it's quality, not quantity.
Right. And to that point, we tend to then try to pour resources into this population, right, when they're behind the wall, right, instead of doing it when they're out here, right? We're quick to say, now that they're incarcerated, right? They're now paying attention to these issues.
The same thing that you said with the schools. Like the kids that are getting in trouble, they get the resources, and the ones that are doing the right thing aren't getting the resources. Yeah, where's the help for the citizen that's doing his thing?
Right.
Well, let me speak to that, because first of all, I think that it's not a either or, to both and.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Totally agree
with
The
that.
truth
Yes.
of the matter is that we have to do intervention, right, for populations that actually didn't have the resources in place on the front end.
But here's the problem with that is that in that population is the only place where we're overrepresented.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That is very so. Hence the reason why we need to be intentional in being able to do the intervention and put programs behind the wall that are going to be able to kind of do some
drive those
transformation and some healing, right? So that, and then pathways to come out so that you don't get sucked back into the cesspool.
I guess because, and literally and figuratively, right? When you go to the prison, you have a captive audience, right?
Yeah.
And it's how do we get to like Brother Dicker was saying, is that it's hard for me because I've had even working in it's getting to engage with these young people, getting to have a conversation. They don't want to talk to you, and I don't want to wait until they get in trouble. That's the problem that I see today. Is how we find that connection.
Well, where we find that connection, detective, is like you. It really starts at home, right? You're a father.
Yeah.
You have your children.
Yes.
Right. So that's the first thing, right? Yeah. Fathers, right? We got to change this whole trajectory of fathers that are absent. But again, you got to fix the, for lack of better words, broken men, right? So that you can simultaneously start another generation of people who are actually raising and engaged with their children.
But again,
fathers.
It's systematic, the fact that the black family has been broken up.
I get it.
It has been systematic, the fact that they've taken the father from the home.
I get that, brother.
Okay.
I get that. I get the reasons why. I'm talking about, we need to start focusing on the reason.
And here's another crazy thing about this.
You're not even listening to hear me. We have to pause, right? We got plenty. We understand the why. We can have that conversation all day. My point is, we have to start thinking about the what we do to be able to change that.
No, that's a great point. But I guess to propose is how do we combat that? Like, it would never be discussed in my house that neither one of the parents is not needed.
Correct.
A lot of times today, it's like, I don't need no man.
Correct.
I don't need,
Correct.
And so that's the narrative, that's the mindset.
It's true
that a lot of these kids, or they may be siblings, but they've got 3 or 4 of them, and they all have different fathers.
That's true.
The one common thing is they may have the same mom, but they don't. And then I can't imagine being in a home where maybe one dad might be a good dad, and he comes and takes me out, but the other dads are MIA, right? And so people don't understand this weighs on kids. Because I know a lot of times when I'm a little stern with kids, when I was in the schools and stuff, I could see they were responding, and they wanted that.
Yes.
They wanted some direction and some structure in their life. Right? Yes. They might try to push back and some bravado for their friends, but for the most part, right? They were like, okay. Yeah. And now if somebody said, nah, because, I'm going to get in trouble, so they had an excuse. Sometimes they're looking for an excuse. But when you don't have that, and that figure, that male has been pushed, and some of it has been voluntarily, people have allocated from not
advocated their responsibility.
That's what I'm advocating, right? And it's almost become fashionable.
It's true.
In a sense, like
it's true.
People looked at me when I told them, I used to tell people before I was married, I didn't have any kids. Oh man, you don't need to be married to have kids. I'm like, maybe that works for you. But almost like I was a dinosaur. There was something wrong with me.
Right. No, they're like,
for wanting to have
no kids.
Unit.
When they look at you, you're like, how old are you? You ain't got no kids. I'm like,
something's wrong with you.
I'm like, no. I need to. If I'm gonna have,
but you have a bunch of them. You're not involved in their lives.
And
child support.
And the truth of the matter is, right? I always have to go to the book, right? Because that's really where the answer is, right? And it says, broad is the way to destruction, and narrow is the way to God, and few be that find. So we're always going. Unfortunately, we're going to be an anomaly, right? You're going to be the people who are going to stand out when you're the virgin, when you're the person who's educated, that's leadership, right? But we need to create mechanisms and to be able to foster that.
Well, like I said, in Montreal, the nerd was the popular kid,
right?
And then we in this country, the people that create violence or make things bad, they're the people that supposedly people emulate. The drug dealers, the pimps, the gangsters, or whatever.
But to your point, Dick, to your point though, like the church used to be our sanctuary, literally and figuratively, right? Where people came, right? We're broadcasting from in the basement of a church, right? Yep. People came together. Yeah. What would you say in realistically the population got older? Because while we were growing up, we were brought into church because my mom Sunday. That's where you were conditioned. It was no question. It wasn't debate. Saturday, you were raised that way. You got your stuff ready for church. Came back after church. We had dinner. It was a family. That has broken down so much. And I don't think people understand. Thank you. That's been replaced with this is a distraction.
I don't want to engage. It's labor intensive.
I don't think we'll ever get the back, because I remember telling you guys a story when I said when phones kind of first started coming out when they were expensive, so you could only really kind of use it during certain times, because after 7 it was everybody was on their phone after 7 o'clock, right? But during the day nobody was on their phone because it cost you per minute.
Yes.
And I remember when I was working in the drug unit, I told you guys a story when we had the Nextels because they had the two-way communication,
little walkie-talkies,
right? And I remember having to go get mine fixed, and I asked the guy just out of curiosity. I said, "What does this Nextel stand for?" He's like, "Oh, you don't know?" I said, "No, I have no idea. Do you guys know what Nextel stands for?"
Next telephone, right?
Next telephone. Yeah. All right. Okay. And he's like, "In a few years, no one will have a house phone, and everyone will be." I'm like, "Dude, people are not giving up their house phones." That's just wishful thinking, right? They're just not doing it.
Well, the older generation did not. Some people still have landlines,
right? But that population is fading.
And they won't have a choice, because eventually stuff like this, like it went from TV went to cable, and now analog to digital, right? Even the elderly people, they had to get a digital converter.
Exactly.
Like, you're forced to have to embrace change.
But that's the point that I'm making, is that it wasn't like when we have a fairly new house. It's only like 5 years old. It's brand newly moved in. And my mom was living with us first before she passed. And I'm looking around, and she was like, "Oh," because she was jack. We had to have them come in and put one. They don't even install them in their home.
Do it.
Just the modem for the internet and all that. But there is nothing. Everything is the way you communicate. And I'm like, but that's something that she was used to, and these young people will never experience that. Like, they look at a phone booth if they see one.
This is a museum and what have you. Like, you look at Smithsonian, right? You look at movies.
Any final remarks from you, sir? I know we've had you. Thank you for actually always having a spirited conversation. We appreciate that, and engaging. And we're gonna continue to work with you. Rhodes and them are gonna work harder. I'm just kind of like, I'm just really gonna be a passive observer, because I'm gonna do what I can do to try to help our people in a way that is meaningful. But I think I've just thrown my hands up in the air, and the more I see, because I find also that the few of us that are willing to step up, then everybody else will step back. But if there's any blessings to come out of it, they want to be the first to receive them, and I'm tired of that as well. So before we let you go, sir, any parting remarks?
Keep supporting the People's Academy, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I sit on the board because it's a cause I believe in. But yeah. Thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and stay dry.
Yeah.
Yep. Bye.
No, again, gentlemen, I pose this question. We got a few minutes left. I feel defeated in a lot of ways, because we've been beating this. You guys have been advocates. That's how I met you at MAMLEO with Pastor Wall. He's been so on, but we've lost a lot of our leaders. They've gotten older now. They don't have the capability. They have the will, but the body and the flesh, so, and we haven't trained up.
No. The younger generation coming up.
I look like, with me, it was Billy Celeste, Dr. Bradley, you with Minister Pastor Wall, and other. But when I look back, and I'm hopeful, because there are some folks in MAMLEO and our leadership, our current president, Dr. Lopes, that there. But I look around and I fear for him, because there is a shelf life in these positions. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking around saying, okay, who is he going to pass the baton to?
You always have to be looking at who's going to be the. And I heard someone say, no movement is a success without successors. Right. So I appreciate it. Even Pastor Wall, 74 years young, but he had 20 some odd years. He's looking, who's going to be my predecessor? Yeah. And you have to always be thinking forward and training another generation to having mentees. Right. And that's the piece we have to be really intentional. We talked about what I was was talking about silence. You have the people who are your peers, people who are your mentors, and your mentees.
Yeah, it's really scary. We're in some real precarious and scary.
We gotta wake up. We gotta wake up.
I broadcast our T-shirt. I still have mine. It says "Stay woke." Stay woke. Any party marks, my brother?
All I gotta stay vigilant and just understand that this is not a race. It's a marathon.
We just saw one. It takes 26 miles to get to the finish. Most people can't get. They can't. They
get past the first mile.
Want everything rush
instantaneously. Yes,
and it's not going to happen.
Because there are people with hidden agendas that you don't see that are working behind the scenes.
We gotta call that out.
No, and we do try to call it out, but again, they're not out there in the open. Yeah. Just like the Ku Klux Klan, they wanted their agenda, but they always wore the mask because they didn't want to be during the day.
But here's the thing: the other side is decided that they're gonna be all in on who they think is gonna have their best interest. We need
we need that same.
We need to
because they're pulling the Trump card. Literally, they're pulling the Trump card. I ain't calling it. But I'm calling it. They're pulling the Trump card. All right.
Well, folks, that's been it. We've been enjoyed the time with you this morning. You've been listening to At the Round Table with Maryland. Pastor Hobbs, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Thank you.
God willing. We will see each other again in the morning.
Yes.
Brother Rhodes, we'll schedule some time with you this week as well.
Yes.
All right, folks. Stay blessed. Stay dry. Stay safe.
Yeah, amen. Amen.
All right.
Why doesn't America have it?
They said because they would give black people free health care.
Well, actually,